right, you're live on YouTube.
It's gonna take a big chunk out of the wagon.
So, probably.
Good.
Nobody can use Swagit because they install all your cameras in one spot. Everybody's had to move.
Yeah.
So they're kind of stuck.
It seems like this does everything you needed to do and it's more flexible.
Yeah, because Swagit, they run your cameras for you. So you can't just decide when to have something. You got to schedule with them and stuff. So yeah.
But we got to run our own cameras. It was great fun trying to talk and think while switching cameras. That was awesome.
Zoom, and everybody's got where they can run Zoom, and yeah, it's a lot more flexible. So yeah, I'm sure it's killing them.
Zoom's been very responsive to what everyone needs during this time, so.
They've been real responsive to change. And
So all five are accounted for, sir.
All right. I guess we'll start. Okay. It is 7:01, and we are here October 5th, 2020, at the regular meeting of the City of Red Oak Planning and Zoning Commission. Today we have all members present. Bill Sykes, Chair, Leroy Krause, Class Secretary, Lance Brooks, Member. We have Derek Parks, Vice Chair on Zoom, and we have Willie Franklin, Member, also on Zoom. And today we are to have our regular meeting, and we are located at the Red Oak Municipal Center at 200 Lakeview in Red Oak, Texas. And we do have a quorum, and so we will start with our new business. And we have item A, which is to conduct a public hearing and consider amending plan development PD 67 for a 7-Eleven convenience store with gas pumps east of Hickory Creek Drive, being approximately 2.6 acres on lot 2R of Hickory Creek Estates, Phase 1, at 135 East Ovilla Road, City of Red Oak.
So, good evening, gentlemen. Well, as you mentioned, so this is for a 7-Eleven convenience store with gasoline sales. It's here at this southeast corner of 664 and Hickory Creek. Just so you know, the notice was done for the entire parcel because it's currently one parcel of land. So the site itself is probably maybe more of a third of the area, northwest corner of that parcel. Kind of imagine that, give you kind of a sense of scale and location. We do have single family, here that would be across the street, single family here, and then commercial up here. And then just as an aside, as I try to get the scale on this, I have not received any phone calls. I double checked that I noticed the right people, just because I was a little surprised, no phone calls at all. Didn't get any phone calls or emails asking questions or anything like that. This is basically a standard 7-Eleven. They certainly upped their game the past 10 years, so they're showing full masonry, a lot of glazing, a lot of glass on the front elevation, and a fair number of gas pumps, the 4 lanes. But and they're generally meeting all our standard requirements, but maybe one important one that we'll get to in a minute But, the dumpster screening, they've done a nice job matching, that aesthetic with the main building. They've also worked with staff, the turquoise blue lines, represent what TxDOT is taking and building in the future along the villa. Y'all may be familiar with that project. So, they've worked with staff to try to ensure that what will be built today, will look normal and look thought out after the taking by TxDOT is completed. As you may have noticed along 664, some of the old buildings, or the old businesses, they're losing a lot of frontage. It's hard to make that whole. So again, 7-Eleven is working with staff to make sure this looks right after it's built. So we've got a lot of trees here along the Hickory Creek and Avila side. I've talked with the fire marshal about having a fire lane access, and there are 2 points, fire satisfied there. We've got possibility for a future connection here on the east side to connect, should that work out, as well as down here. We do not know what the future is for the development for the remainder of the site at this time. So that's something we definitely want to keep in mind, is kind of with the unknown, how do we ensure that in the future it looks like it was all known, right? And of course they're going to keep along that fence, all these trees there along the street. There, those exist today. I believe they're cedar trees of some kind, or junipers, so they'll stay. And that may have been a better page to focus on the next more important topic. Sorry about that. Making people dizzy, I'm sure. So here on the back side of the property, they're proposing a lot of landscaping, which is great, but no kind of physical, hard, opaque barrier. Normally, our code says if you construct a commercial building adjacent to residential, then you must construct a masonry wall. And so that's generally the rule we generally follow, with very rare exceptions to that idea. Now, the quirk here is with this PD, these lots to the south were kind of originally thought of as being residential lots. Kind of, you can tell by looking at the street. You didn't see the original plat, but this was replatted into one lot, so it kind of erased that. So again, we've got this unknown. We don't know if this is going to go single family, put, say, 3 houses, I suppose, across the street or something else. If you did something commercial, what would that mean? We've had kind of these conversations about trying to blend these kind of transition areas, these buffer areas. So if it was going to be a non-residential structure, what is going on? Sorry, I'm a little ADD, so I get easily distracted by doing this stuff. But we talked about buffering and transitioning on a site, between sites. So that's just where this is a real challenge, because it was originally thought of as being single family, but that's kind of been wiped away as far as being entitled. You'd still probably do it, but we don't know. If you were to do something non-residential, something commercial, probably, maybe I'm just having a flashback to last month, but a medical office type thing, because you can make those look like a house and blend in more. And they're low intensity and stuff. So again, we don't know. We haven't had that conversation specifically, by the way, with the developer. That's just to give sort of an idea of, we certainly wouldn't want, say, well, not that we would do another 7-Eleven on that side, but you certainly wouldn't want something that pulls in traffic and stuff onto a street like that. So if it was something that would become non-residential, it's gonna have to be something of very low intensity. But either way, we just got a challenge with what do we do about the screening, because, yeah, you're gonna have a 7-Eleven and trees, and that will hide a lot, but this is kind of a focal point area. I'll try to zoom out a little bit here. And, on the left-hand side, we've got, it's a commercial lot for the future, for sure, but it also is there that begins a trailhead, for the Tybee Ridge Trail and Park. So we hope that this would be kind of a traffic area, that people may notice this wall, or lack thereof. So, if you had single-family homes that came in here, if you allowed a wood fence, board on board like we've done sometimes, but the thing is, this one's still kind of viewable from the right-of-way, though. This isn't one of those where only like a few internal lots may see it. This is one that's gonna be viewable from, more so probably Hickory Creek than Ovilla, but still, people coming by car going in and out there are gonna see it. And this lot is also not in an HOA. So there's not a mechanism there with the existing HOA for that subdivision to be able to say, oh, well, you'll provide and take care of the screening wall. So we don't have that option in place through an HOA. What else could I tell you? So I guess that's, for staff, that's just been one of the points. We had said masonry wall. The applicant had said, they're not really wanting to do that. Otherwise, they probably would have put it on the plan. We don't have really any kind of wall or fence there now, so I think they're certainly willing to talk and try to work it out. But the masonry wall was, as I understood it, and I don't want to put words in her mouth, but as I understood it, was not something they were interested in. But again, it's hard to say. So what we may have to also consider is, do we say for this PD, well, if this develops single family or residential, then boom, you got to do 6-foot masonry screening wall. But then where exactly does that go? Which side should bear that, and then who actually builds it? I mean, it doesn't seem exactly practical to say, well, 10 years later, they finally developed that land, and hey, whomever maybe owns 7-Eleven lot, 7-Eleven or someone else in the future, because things do change. By the way, you've got to build a masonry wall if you want to build those homes. So that's just something that, we got to kind of think that through on what those triggers might be. Of course, one option is to say, if you don't want to build a masonry wall, that's fine, but you can't build single family there. You'd have to do something commercial, but then if that's the case, you still may want some kind of something along that property line, because I don't know that the people across the street, if anyone called or emailed me, but I don't know that people across the street are going to want to front a real serious commercial business. That's why I think that, like a dentist office kind of thing, a little easier to swallow. But if that's more commercial site, then it seems like you're back to needing to wrap that in a masonry wall. Probably with the landscaping on the outside.
Our thought basically was, how do we ensure that we get, if they do sell to a residential developer, how do we make sure we get a masonry wall in residential? The problem is, there's so few lots that would be had there that a residential developer could meet that cost in that development. So if it's either kind of like, well, maybe if their true intent is to do it, like, well, sell to a residential developer, well, just go ahead and do it. Masonry wall. But if it could be done in some commercial way, great, masonry wall, but then like Brian was saying, well, what do we do along the road there? And there is some nice, like, landscaping there now that's pretty grown up and all that, but as soon as someone comes to develop that property, they're gonna wanna take access off that street, because it wouldn't make sense to do some crazy long driveway from the street, so, without knowing exactly what their plans are, it's kind of tough, and we don't, like I said, we don't wanna inhibit them from being able to sell it, to a residential developer. I don't think that's a bad use for it. As you can see there on the old Google, it still has those 4 lots that were originally there. Where you drop down into the street, kind of all the plantings that were there.
Pretty great.
But at some point, there was that fence put there, yeah, that's an older image, but they're grown up pretty large now, so that may be enough, but again, if somebody comes in to develop that commercially, they're gonna wanna take access off of that, we'll require them most likely to have access. So you would be, exposing some of that development to homes across the street, so, it's kind of an unknown, I think, and you may, if we require them to build a masonry wall now, you may have an unneeded masonry wall between 2 commercial businesses, be super funky, and it wouldn't look right, but at the same time, you don't wanna inhibit the ability for someone to just go back and make that 4 resident lot. Because the numbers just wouldn't work. And then it just sits there and there's no change, it just keeps looking like it looks, so. But I don't know, maybe they just reduce the cost of, selling the lots, cover the screening wall, I don't know. So, it could go either way. But, part of everything else on the site goes, I think, they address all of our concerns. And needs for what we require.
I mean, this wall is really the only issue. I guess when I try thinking about it, I guess I think of like Boolean if-then statements. You know, like, so if that goes residential, then you do masonry wall. If that goes, apartments or commercial, you know, then it kind of depends on how that's oriented on the site. You're still probably doing a masonry wall. It's just, it could probably be along that southern street.
It is also important to note that we aren't entitling this back area for anything right now. It's not being specified as a use or anything. Technically, it's gonna have to come back and go through zoning all over again, which at that time we can address it. We were just kind of thinking in terms of even getting the zoning application in, if we're telling them up front, hey, you gotta build this masonry wall, and then they're like, oh, well, we obviously can't afford that. So that was kind of the thought process. Again, anything that comes in on this lot to the west, I'm sorry, to the east or to the south, is gonna have to go through the same process and come before you guys. So we will have opportunities to make that decision, if that's what you decide. We don't wanna make that decision right now.
So I think that's probably all we need.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, thank you for the briefing. All right, so we will open, the public meeting, or the, public hearing. Typically on a public hearing, what we do is we allow everyone who is, for this request to have a chance to, speak. And then if there's anybody who's opposed to this request, we give them an opportunity to speak. If you just simply have questions, and don't know if you're for it or against it, just, at any point, you can just, take to the microphone and ask your question. Typically, we open the public hearing and we let the applicant speak. So this is being requested by Kevin Matson. So if Matson is on the line, he's please state your name and address and tell us about your request.
Hi, so my name's Kevin Matson. My address is 9601 Topeka Avenue, Lubbock, Texas. That's the address of our development company's entity. I live out here in DFW. So I am the applicant. Cody or Lorraine on my end might chime in, but I just wanted to kind of touch on kind of what we're thinking in regards to the masonry comment and future plans for this site. So this site, unfortunately, does not have the prototypical width, but it does come with depth. Has presented some site plan challenges, and I think for the corner, I think we had the highest and best use for this property, but figuring out what goes around it's kind of an open-ended question. And so kind of what our thought is, we're not opposed necessarily to a masonry wall. What we're trying to do is leave our options open for the remainder of the property, so we enhance the landscaping above city code, which is what is shown here, and tried to buffer as much as we can, because I got to keep my options open with what we plan to do around the site. And I'm trying to avoid, if I put up a masonry wall and we try to dictate a location, whether that's in the back of the parcel, whether that's abutting sycamore, I'm trying to avoid demolishing maybe a portion of that wall. So we built it to just take it down and re-angle it, and whatever we might do in the future. When it comes to future access, we are not intending to access Sycamore. If the road was to come and try to access again, we would try to maybe connect over to Hickory. But I think that kind of bringing that road straight down to Sycamore would bring up more challenges than it would good. But feel free to chime in, Lorraine or Cody, but I just wanted to kind of touch on those couple points.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Matson. Is there anybody else who would like to speak for this request?
Did have somebody on the chat, Rashida Hurd, and in the chat on here, but she didn't publish it online. She says, I live on Sycamore Circle, how will the new 7-7 affect your?
Okay, I will answer that. It won't. The 7-Eleven driveways are on Ovella Road and Deer Creek. She'll still be able to make left and right turns off of Sycamore. But I want to say that those are all rear entry homes. So she would take her normal access to get to her garage as it is today.
No change.
This is Kashada Hurd. My home is not a rear entry home. I don't have an alley behind me. I have a J drive. I'm actually in the cul-de-sac. So I'm wondering, how will that affect traffic on my street and the accessibility to my street with all of the construction and possibly rerouting? I think if I heard you all correctly, it was a little bit unclear, but rerouting traffic through that street as well.
Yes, ma'am. So the main access points for the 7-Eleven will be off of Bill Road and Hickory Creek. They won't be taking access with this plan off of Sycamore. So what we've been talking a lot about what might happen, because they've got a parcel of land behind the 7-Eleven in between Sycamore Street and the 7-Eleven that could possibly be developed into something in the future. And so we're not pinning that down right now. We're focusing on the corner of Ovilla and Hickory. So if they do ever want to develop that parcel Sycamore, then they would have to come back through the same process whereby you would get notified. And kind of what we've been talking about is it could possibly go, in some kind of commercial, development pattern, or it could, go back to residential, which is what it was, previously, where about 4 homes essentially face the cul-de-sac. But as of right now, there wouldn't be any changes to your traffic pattern or your access.
7-Eleven is not being built in that area right across from the cul-de-sac area? Or it is because, I'm asking because why, like you said, that area is more wide than it is long. Although it appears that it's a large plot of land from where I sit in my front yard, it's not as large to have a 7-Eleven with the parking lot and the ability to have another building there if something else comes along commercially. So I guess for me, it's a concern of not just my traffic, but also my property value.
Understood. So can you see the site plan, from your computer?
I
You've
can
got
see
it
it
up
from my front door, yes.
So all the parking, is in the front of the 7-Eleven, it's not in the back. So there's actually, so if you're standing at your house and you're thinking of looking across the street at the 7-Eleven, it's actually about 125 feet to the property line of the 7-Eleven, and then I believe there's another 24 feet to the building.
Mhm.
So it would be 145 feet from the curb, of Sycamore.
I guess my wondering is also, when this was originally discussed a few years ago, and we sat in another meeting, we were told a masonry wall would be put up between any company or business that was placed there to keep that separation from our property and whatever commercial building was put there. And so from what I'm hearing now, the options are being kept open to not put a masonry wall. At a previous meeting a few years ago, we were told it would be a masonry wall put there. So has that changed?
No, it's not changed. So what we're talking about here and what we've been discussing about the wall is whether to place it, in the location where the 7-Eleven development is ending, which is like that 125 feet from the back of curb that I mentioned earlier, is where we're discussing if we should have put a masonry wall there now, or if the parcel in between the 7-Eleven and Sycamore Street does develop, then at that time, we would certainly require a masonry wall if it were a commercial development. So like I said, they are not developing that site yet, and so any commercial business that would have to come in, and even any residential, would have to go through the same process, whereby you're getting notified, and then I think, so what we're talking about now is, not requiring or requiring that masonry wall, but what the applicant's saying is they don't want to put it, 125 feet from Sycamore right now, because they don't want to have to tear it down if they develop the back of the property commercial and then rebuild it right along Sycamore.
So what I'm hearing you say, just for clarification, we would have to contend with all the traffic and any other dealings at the 7-Eleven in our community until someone decides to either develop that area or you decide it won't be developed and a masonry wall will go up in. But until that decision is made, we have to contend with all of the traffic, noise, whatever happens at the 7-Eleven. Since we are the first street in the.
That's what the developer is proposing, yes, but I would like to reiterate the parking and the noise and all that's located in front of the building. It's not behind the building. So hopefully it would be reduced to maybe by what you're thinking it might be.
I'm just thinking about typical things that happen at a gas station that we really have no control over, and how that affects our community as it's happening.
Okay, well, we hear you, and we appreciate your concern.
Okay, is there anybody else who would like to speak, for this, application or has a question at this time? Is there anybody who would like to speak against this application? All right, I don't hear anybody, so, can we have a motion to, close the public hearing?
Second.
I'm sorry, I've been having a heck of a time here trying to join. I have a problem with the laptop. I apologize. Did I get in just right after too late?
No, go ahead and, tell
Yes.
us, your name, address, and what you, would like to say.
Yeah, my name is Mark Stanek. I live right next door. I'm right on Sycamore Circle looking due to the facility folks are talking about. And I do notice a driveway that comes down the side that looks like it ends. Is that going to loop out and around behind that area? Is my question. Behind the store?
Not right now. That's mostly just for the dumpster service that's, where the dumpster is, so they had to provide access for the trash trucks to get back there. But again, without knowing what's gonna develop on the parcel behind it, it could potentially loop, back out to Hickory Creek, and some development, behind there would be utilizing it for access. But at the time.
Yeah, see, when I originally moved here in 2008, that was supposed to be all homes across there. And now that's all going to be rezoned to commercial. I apologize. I was having trouble with my tablet getting connected tonight.
Right, so, you're correct, it was gonna be homes, and then it was purchased and rezoned, commercial, and now, and what we've been talking about a lot here is, whether this current developer of the 7-Eleven, is going to sell it back to a home developer to develop homes again, because they didn't need the debt. So they may do that, or they may try to sell it to some other commercial type developer, but, it would probably be easier for them to sell it as single family, just because that's an easier sell, but I'll let them talk more about that if they want to, Mr. Matt.
Okay. Well, I'm definitely talking to the rest of the neighbors here. And again, gentlemen, I do apologize for getting in late. I'm just having a heck of a time with the internet and so on to get connected here. And definitely the folks along the street are really not tickled about this idea. So I guess we've just got to get ready for the next meeting, I believe.
Okay, did you have any other questions or statements?
No. I thank you that you have this stuff posted on here so we can see it. It's great to have something physical and actually look at, and thank you for doing that. Yeah, the questions of it is another gas station and another Jiffy Mart. We've got plenty along Ovilla Road.
Okay. All right, thank you, sir. Is there anybody else who would like to speak? If not, I believe we have a motion and a second. And I guess we can take a vote to close the public hearing. Everyone in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, any? All right, motion's carried. The public hearing is closed. Discussion among commissioners. What are y'all thinking?
Just to clarify, if it's residential, then the masonry wall has to go in.
Well, it's gotta come back through this process, so we would obviously be recommending any developer that, yeah, you have to make a wall, but what Brian was saying earlier, who owns it, who maintains it, and if a residential developer came to us and said, hey, we're buying this property, we want to zone it, we'd say, okay, you have to provide a masonry wall, and you're gonna have to either join back into this HOA, so that you can have HOA maintenance for that wall, or you're gonna have to create a 4-lot HOA to maintain that wall across.
Right.
And so, again, not knowing what was happening, our thought was, oh, gosh, maybe we should have to put the wall in now, because commercial is gonna be able to handle that cost a lot better than a 4-lot deal. But again, if you do something commercial back there, you don't want them tearing down the wall and building waste of money, right?
And if they did that, is the masonry wall then along the border of Sycamore, and does it wrap back
Yeah.
up behind these homes here?
Yep. Yeah, so that's, that second lot to the, would have a masonry wall on that property line as well.
Right. But at some point, either way, there's gonna be a masonry wall.
Well, it's gonna come back here again to this process, because we're now in a development plan process, not a straight zoning process. So it'll come back here to the commission with either staff making them submit something that shows a masonry wall on it, or staff's recommendation to you guys to say, make them do a masonry wall.
I guess my question is, I mean, if the developer wants to put a masonry wall there, will there be an issue? Is it, I mean, if he wants to put one right there, will there be an issue as of right now? If you don't know what the other lot's gonna be, which like you said, if you look at the aerial map, it pretty much already looks like the lot's already platted out for the residential. So I'm thinking if the developer wants to put that masonry wall there, will that be an issue either way, if he wanted to do that?
It would just be an issue, if that parcel went commercial. Because then you'd have an unnecessary wall in between the 7-Eleven and the new commercial, and then that new commercial would also have to provide a wall along Sycamore. So you'd have this strange, small commercial development that basically looks like it's in a prison yard because it's got brick walls on 3 sides of it. So I think we're just trying to, take our best guess at placement. The reality is, I think we're gonna have to wait and see, and, but it's up to you guys, obviously, to see what actually develops on that remainder parcel.
And just for clarity, the lot is currently platted one lot, it's a replat, so there are currently no single-family platted lots on that.
Right. Is it, I mean, if it was a commercial, is it big enough to put, I mean, what would you put there? I mean, what could fit on that parcel as a retail?
It would be, like Brian was saying, like some kind of medical office or some, light commercial neighborhood service type place. And the architect, we would obviously be encouraging architecture that looked like a single family home. So basically, it would look like a single family home, maybe someone that's got it's a tax accountant or a financial advisor, we have their office there.
Right.
So it looked like a single family home with a parking lot. Kind of the way it ends up looking.
Okay.
I understand the homeowner's concerns of, I mean, if I lived on Sycamore and I can open up my door right now and see the rear, for the time being, the rear of a 7-Eleven as well as a dumpster, I do get their concerns. But from what I'm hearing, no matter what, for future development, we will revisit this masonry wall for Sycamore, depending on what comes here to develop.
Yes.
So I think I wouldn't want to task the developers of the 7-Eleven to put in a wall just yet, being that we are unclear of what could come here. So I think that task should probably lie on the person who comes here next to develop that lot. So as long as we can revisit it in the future to determine if a wall needs to go there, I mean, I think I'm fine with developing it as is until we hear something later on this other lot.
Yes, sir. Just to reiterate, because of the zoning type we're doing, they will have to bring forth a development plan for that lot, so that we'll come back for both the commission and the council, prior to approval.
Okay. And secondly, looking at the landscaping plan, is it possible that that landscaping could actually cover up most of the rear of that lot for the dumpster and the rear of the store? Because we know with the rear of the 7-Eleven, it's going to be all type of probably materials and stuff that's back there. So I'm just kind of thinking about until this second lot is developed, the homeowners on Sycamore Street, you know, are they able to look across the street and see landscaping, or they look across the street and see mostly the back of a building and dumpster?
So it should be, the majority of what they're gonna be able to see is landscaping. Like we talked about, there's already a hedgerow of evergreens. Those are 3 years old, older now than this, picture, or 4 years older than the Google Street View. That they're pretty, substantial.
They're 6 or 7 feet tall.
Yeah, they're large. And then if you look at the landscape plan on that property line, they've got some pretty tightly grouped evergreens across that back, development limit there. But again, if we remember the elevations we looked at, it's brick all the way around, and then the dumpster screening wall is also brick, same, style and pattern as the building. So it shouldn't be
Are those
too-
existing trees protected?
As in by a tree ordinance or something?
Yes, to where they can't come back in a few months and say, hey, we're gonna dig these up?
Oh, yeah, no, they're not, but
Well, in a way, because the landscape that was approved has to be maintained. So whatever's there now is what must be there until essentially y'all in council say otherwise.
Okay,
right.
well, I'm,
The
okay,
development shows that on there, so they would have to remain
okay.
as of now.
Well, I'm okay with the proposed plan as is, and we revisit this when it's time to do the second lot.
Do we have anybody else, any more discussion? Lance?
Yeah, one last thing. If it did go commercial, is it possible that the entry could be off of Sycamore, or would that be,
I think we would try to eliminate that, there's a pretty close drive access that could come off of the 7-Eleven, area, and then it can maybe loop back down Hickory. I'd have to check the spacing, we don't want it to be unsafe, like having a street and 2 driveways in close proximity can sometimes create safety issues, but if it's a low entity use, like a CPA or some kind of law firm or something that doesn't get a lot of traffic, like, again, it's a neighborhood service, it's gonna really just be the employees, not a bunch of, users. It may not be that big of a deal to punch it back out on Hickory. But we would certainly wanna try and avoid connecting a commercial development to a residential development. But it just depends on the use, depends on what the fire marshal wants to see in terms of access, activity, and stuff like that. So, there would be some things to work through, but, I think the goal in the general planning is not connect.
Leo?
What about like a decorative metal fence or something? Is there some discussion about that? For the developer to go along with that landscaping, kind of prevent people from going through and.
In the current, like, along the current back of the development, I don't trust that.
What about some type of wood fence? Instead, like Leroy is saying, on top of the landscaping. I mean, I'm thinking some other barrier, because you got to think about, you got those homes and it's not that far. I mean, I know you have the evergreen trees, which are planted real tight, but I mean, what about a wood fence, a stained wood fence or something? there and the landscaping or a wood
I think
fence?
that's a good idea.
I like the idea, because that would screen it better and it wouldn't be permanent.
You know,
Right.
7-Elevens are, you know, how long they stay open. I mean, you know, 24 hours. So, you know, you got cars, you got doors slamming, you got people talking loud, you know how gas stations are. They can get pretty busy, especially on the weekends and stuff. And like, you got those homeowners. So I'm thinking as a homeowner, you can hear all those echoes and sounds and stuff pretty much
Right.
all the time. So that's just my suggestion on that end. I don't have anything else.
I think, yeah, I was wondering some type of barrier just to keep people from wandering into that field, from the gas station or from 7-Eleven. That, it would make me feel better if I was living in that neighborhood, just to know that they have to, if they're coming into my neighborhood, they're coming down the street and they're not just wandering that field, and that field doesn't become the place people loiter and do bad things at, so.
The business
I
owner
agree.
might want it too.
Yeah, being a homeowner, that's a really good idea. If I'm allowed to interject right now, I apologize.
All right, is there, any other discussion? If not,
No,
can,
I haven't.
is someone, make a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve agenda item A as written with adding I'm gonna say a wood fence in the rear of the 7-Eleven with the landscaping, if that's the correct way to say it.
Should we add a height?
I'll just ask you specify in your motion, the type of fence, such as board on board, is it cedar, is it 6 feet tall or 8 feet tall? And does it run only, say, the width of this rough site area for just the 7-Eleven? Or were you suggesting that it go the whole width across the lot? So if you could be clear in your motion, again, is it a cedar fence? Is it board on board? Is it 6 or 8 feet tall? And what distance does it run across the lot? Or basically, are we just trying to cover the backside of the 7-Eleven site, or also the unknown eastern site? You can see my little cursor there.
Right. So how many feet is from that, I guess, from Hickory all the way across? I guess,
It's like 97.
I'm thinking all the way across that lot, width of the lot.
And I think 8 feet to be consistent with the other fences around.
8 feet fence, 8-foot fence. I'm gonna say 8-foot fence, board on board, cedar. But the length, give me a second here.
Like it's 97 feet, 3 inches.
98 feet. You wanna go with that?
Probably around 300 total width of the lot.
300? Is that 300 feet?
97.5, 97.03, and 98.22 are the three lines across there, so the total width would be close to 300, so you could say.
300 feet?
300 feet.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Approving agenda item A is written, but including a 8-foot board on board cedar fence around 300 feet across the rear of 7-Eleven.
Is there a second?
I second.
There's been a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? None. All right, so agenda item A was approved, and now we'll go to agenda item B, which is, I guess, a staff update on the comprehensive plan.
So, just wanted to take a minute to let you know the latest on the comp plan and master parks open space plan. So, currently, staff is working with the consultants to provide them copies of our plans, our old plans, you know, for, water, wastewater reports, so obviously the old comp plans, strategic plans, anything we've got, as well as data and information. They're, you know, looking into accident traffic reports. They're being very thorough in their request for information, keeping us very busy and on our toes. Also, staff's been, working on helping to put together a steering committee, list of potential names, so that will, I believe, go in front of council, I think. And so the hope is that on October 22nd, they'll have their first kickoff meeting with the steering committee members. And we will also probably that same day, with the consultant staff, will do a few, like maybe 3, 4, 5 at most, site visit tours, meaning, you know, for parks, I don't know the sites yet. The parks director might have a particular parcel of land in mind that he'd like to have a consultant physically come and visit and be able to ask questions and have a conversation there literally on the ground and look at it. So, we might also want to get an opinion about our downtown area, surrounding area as well. Because I personally feel like that's something you kind of got to go and stop and look at. I think it's personally a neat area with a lot of potential. So I'll certainly be pushing that as my priority, if I have to say, for a site visit. And really that's kind of just all we know at the moment. We are definitely moving ahead as quick as we can, and the public engagement will be interesting during this time of COVID. We will basically be doing a lot of online, to the degree that we do engagement. Otherwise, it'll be a smaller group of steering committee members who can be spaced out in the room, hopefully feel comfortable. I think there's still a Zoom option for that as well for those who don't understandably feel comfortable with that situation. But yeah, so that's the update. If you have any questions, happy to answer them.
Thank you, Brian, for the update. Anybody have any questions for Brian? All right, seeing none, let's move to item C, which is the approval of the minutes from our last meeting, September 8th. Assume everyone's been able to take a look at those. And if there's no corrections, then we could have a motion to approve those or accept those.
Motion to accept and approve the meeting minutes from September 8th, 2020 meeting.
And I'll second that.
Okay. Thank you, guys. All right, so we have a motion and a second. All those in agreement, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion was approved. I think that's all our business for tonight. So we'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye. Appreciate you,
Thanks,
Phil.
guys. Appreciate it.